What's good, y'all? My name's Open Book. This is my partner.
Hey guys, this is Harith. Welcome back to Truspace.
Up, and we're gonna break down the human origin story and how where you really come from, where the world really comes from, and what really are the building blocks of the world that we live in. What is really manifested from the infinite potential that energy is, and we'll break down how energy manifests within the world and within us. And yeah, your ancestors are the elements. So we kind of had this understanding. Obviously, when you think of the four elements, you think of a more primitive or more older or ancient, or at least, like in the old world, or old framework of the mind, because you're like, oh, we have like 108 elements or some shit like that. But this basic cosmology from the past has so much merit that people dismiss based off of vernacular and words and cultural differences that lead to that gap of misunderstanding of what was really meant by water, fire, earth, and air, and how, even though it may sound simple, it really does encapsulate the heavily convoluted world and realms of possibility that we find ourselves in. And when we were to start breaking it down, you can start seeing the value of this indigenous cosmology, this indigenous basis of our human origin story, and how it's deeply woven with the four elements, and how reintegrating that is going to give us a holistic view of humanity. Maybe not necessarily discarding all of Western mindsets, but there's a lot of trash that, like 80% of the shit you were taught is, you can probably, throw that away. If you were to go into the woods, how much of the filing taxes would you remember? Or if you get what I mean, like just in a real holistic situation, just looking at you in relation to the natural world that you find yourself in. But yeah, that integration of it is what leads to a holistic understanding. And now you understand what people, where everybody is coming from, and you can take the complex and put it into a simpler mind frame for you to better interact with the world around you. Meanwhile, the modern view, the fragmented aspects of psychology, the fragmented aspects of history, the fragmented aspects of chemistry and material reality, physics, and everything is so fragmented and specialized that you really have to pimp yourself out to benefit from it, and then you're at the whim of whatever these niggas are saying. But if you actually had a filter or a way of looking at the world and understanding, which is what our ancients did and understood by cultivating this type of cosmology and this type of understanding of how the world is made, and so that you could understand things in any situation by using universal symbolism, aka the four elements, and everything that breaks down from that. So we really need to integrate this back.
And you guys gotta realize this. We're looking at the first, second, third dimension, where basically energy gets manifested through different shapes and forms that we create in, like, say, technology, building, and things like that. But all the things that get manifested here, they all came from someone mind and mentality and way of viewing the world. So a lot of time we gotta study the mind of the person who created these things for us to understand the separation that happened in physical reality. Because a lot of time people or science start to encapsulate certain things in the third dimension without the proper understanding of, like, the speculative, or like astrology, the realm that created the physical world itself. So if you forget that realm of reality and try to encapsulate world within the third dimension without using it, you're gonna miss the point. You're gonna end up not able to say one thing, that able to hit multiple things, but you're gonna use one thing to describe one thing, and then when you see another thing but it's the same thing, you're gonna use another word for it. So that creates the separation all the way to the point that people may not connect the stars movement with the weather or the light, because they're all different terms. But like if you know the stars creates the light and the light creates the weather and the weather creates the our area, then you would not confuse them if they're using similar words. But you see how these words separate actually a holistic based understanding.
Facts. We would have just said water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just water. That's it, dog. Describe the whole situation. You see some shorty crying, some nigga yelling, or some shit like that. You just look water, and you just move on with your life, and you would understand. And you see some nigga passionate, you know. You see some niggas fighting and scrapping, fire. That's it. That's all there was to it.
And this is why science is dangerous too, because they were given the legal ability to come up with any word and basically utilize it. For example, they have this term called spermogenesis, obviously dealing with your sperm and how your reproductive system works. But why would you combine a biblical word with another word and then create a new word, but which confuses the people? Some people would argue even they would see the word Genesis there, but they don't believe in the Bible. But how? Where the fuck do you think they got the word? Some people make no sense based on the fact that they like to separate everything because they never had a starting point. So the starting point is already so separated from reality, aka they're their own world that looks brightful, lightful, but actually darkness. So they look dumb, slow, or lost, or something like that. But this is something everybody goes to, even me and everybody.
Absolutely. And it's fair because of the way that they're going about it, the highly mental point of view without being grounded in physical reality, the highly conceptual, that's how it gets. And you make copies of copies, and you forget that the initial mental conceptions were all based off of physical reality things within this world. You would see, it bothers me, you would see psychologists coming up with their own characteristics for people and be like, I have the 4 character traits. And it literally is just the elements. I'm like, shut your bitch ass up. Or the 12 archetypes. And it's like, yo, you guys aren't even trying anymore, yo. Like, you ain't even trying.
These are the same people who are able to invent words and get backed up by certain studies and then present them to the government, and then the government has no choice but to agree with them because they make so much sense. But when we see the results of like what they were doing, it's so like saturated. Like science is so saturated to the point we have scientists, people who just fight against each other using different studies that came at different times from different people, whether they're unreliable or not. We're like in another 2000 Talmud rabbi battle basically, but without them admitting that the tools they started with.
It's facts, and we all forgot that starting point, and that's what needs to be reintegrated if we're ever going to have this type of holistic point of view of how we got to where we got to, and you can look at your origins. So let's look into how we got into this world. And before we tell you, this new perspective of how to look at how we came into this world, let's look at how we're told we came into this world, or the modern perspective or of our origin story that we are fed to as kids, just growing up into the society. So first of all, starts off with the Big Bang, right? That's what they tell us is what created the universe. And we even buy that type of shit. And look at the mentality that society is trying to purport by telling you something like a Big Bang started the universe. Nigga, that sounds like you don't know what started the motherfucking universe, and you're just trying to justify or come up with a creative inference based off of how things appear to be, but you don't know the environment that sustained that atom that collapsed, or if there was other atoms that caused the atom to collapse. If you get what I mean. But they know that it came from an atom collapsing and expanding within itself. But look at how I just added all different dimensions that shape the story different or give it different nuances. So do you really know anything? Once you bring it into all the other factors that could come in, what environment even sustained that, and why aren't we looking at that as our origin story or energy, or is that really the beginning? And look at the parallels between your Big Bang. You the
Yeah.
Big Bang. You was a
Yeah,
big nut.
that's
And you was a big nut and a fat pom pom, and then one cell divided like a magic brick and built a house that we call you built your temple.
and you gotta realize they're trying to use like a concept and then trying to enforce that concept. And like science does this weird thing where they take a subjective thing, make it objective, and they make everybody worship it. But this is the same speculative energy that goes on from second to second, minute to minute, hours to hours. When we started this video, that was a big bang. Every time I open my mouth, that's a small mini big bangs. And you're gonna do big bangs every day of your life. If you start a business, that's a big bang. You start a new workout, that's a big bang. I hate concepts that are not grounded in reality, because I'm not able to utilize it to my day to day. What's the point of having some form of knowledge I cannot utilize day to day so I can feel it, like feel it on a much more personal level? Like I don't want to feel everything on a mental level, which is easy to get lost in.
Exactly.
That's how they get us lost in the mind, and they basically move us away from the body, which made us very like a left brain based creature and shit like that, which obviously like one of their ideas.
100%. And with that left brain type of approach, you start doing those type of categorizations and delineations, and without grounding things with actual reality or within the moment of what you can experience, and things get super conceptual. That's what I think about, like all of these the statistics and studies and talking about people's feelings and shit like that. It's so stupid. Like, I was never asked on one of these surveys when they're talking about, 90% of men think this. I was never asked. So I don't know where this 90% is coming from, if you get what I mean. All of that stuff is arbitrary. So maybe out of 2,000 people, 90% of them say that. Maybe that is significant and that does show something. But are we talking about who drinks milk in fucking middle America? That's a dumbass survey, because obviously 90% of them is going to be doing it. But if you're talking about somewhere else like California or San Francisco, you're going to get different results. So when you're in this conceptual realm, it gets shaky.
This is like I'm saying. They take this subjective idea and then they make it objective, and then they turn it to a god, and then they force it in everybody. But it's not the truth. They do the same thing religion does, but they like cut off the part of that religion does not involve, which is belief. I'm following all the way through with what you say, basically. For example, Jordan Peterson, a person who would claim, he would not claim Christianity, he wouldn't even claim being an atheist. He was gonna tip dance between both of them and how Christ makes sense and how it was honorable. But like he would never, like if Jordan Peterson was somewhere, say in Muslim Spain, and then the Khalifa wanted him, heard him say all this lecture, this 2-hour story about the Bible, and he asked him, okay, do you believe, yes or no? If he tap dance, he's gonna kill him, because you can't tap dance with belief.
Deadass, bro.
Like there's a point where you could tip dance with belief, but there's a point where you look fucking stupid, where we have to actually put you down, because you're gonna say a bunch of retarded stuff that never actually been grounded, and you don't even believe to do what you say.
Oh, fact.
Jordan Peterson.
And it's like, why you even talking about it then? You know,
Jordan Peterson is talking about a story that he may or may not believe it, even though he's living through it right now. He's getting attacked and like a bunch of other stories. Like if
he live it out the Bible story.
If he does not realize that, like there's no way to help him. This guy is a moon, I think moon, and then some sun, Gemini or some shit.
Yeah. I think is he a full moon? Moon in Sag, and then Mercury in Gemini. Mercury and his sun in Gemini. I think so. But yeah, he definitely has the gift for gab. But and he's a representation of it. And he's one of the better. He's still a very insightful and deep person. But he has that tendency. But it's not his fault. He's a Gemini, so he's like When you understand that, when you understand the underlying factors and stuff like that, that's how you can come to accept things, because you can ground it, because you understand that aspect within you. But when you're talking about the conceptual realms and what this philosopher said, and what this scientist said, and what these statistics and these things and all of that, they're good once they're able to be grounded into something. And until then, it doesn't matter. Look at the concept of even what we're talking about with quantum physics. Not even quantum physics, but just atoms and the structure of atoms. You want to talk about, there's 108 elements, more than 4, and say that type of stupid shit. But in your mind, you're thinking of the model of an atom that you were taught in school not too long ago. From 1920, from Albert Einstein and his theory of relativity and the science and capabilities of back then, they known about the quantum field and the quantum realm, and they've known that electrons don't act the way that we had thought under Newtonian physics, and that atoms don't act on a subatomic level the way that we thought that they had worked in a subatomic level, and that there's a whole field of potentiality that these electrons can exist in. So when you're drawing an atom and you're showing a definite orbit, a line, and saying that there's this many electrons on that atom, that is not in line with what even modern physicists had says that model, but that's the model that you were taught in school, which is interesting. So because it's different, it's a field of reality, and that model works so you can do certain things. It works so you can develop electricity and do all of these other things, all of mechanical physics and stuff like that, and you know what time it's gonna take for you to get from here to New York and shit like that, but it doesn't explain the reality that we live in. It gets deeper in that. Once you go deeper into the foundations of it, things get all out of the whack. So even the 108 elements in the way that you know them is not true, and you don't even have the access to the information to go and truly even understand what they're giving. Because look at the example that I'm showing you about that fallacy, and how you would have to have been in science circles and reading scientific journals and really delving into this type of stuff to even have that perspective, while you're being taught in school hundreds of years old mentalities or outdated things, if you get what I mean. But yeah, nature has no obligation to make sense to us. It has no obligation, and that's what this, in the world of physics, there's stagnation. Even though, you probably think things have been happening, but if you really look at the technology that we have, it's not drastically different. Things are faster, sure. Things are more efficient, sure. But that giant leap in how we use technology hasn't happened yet. But it's because of this stagnation that's happening. But look at our origin story and how that's harming our potential. Look at the view of Darwinian evolution and how we even start to develop our bodies. And we're about to show you how it's just racist in its inception, the idea of evolution in the linear way that Charles Darwin was kicking it, in terms of you came from fucking sea creature to blah 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 to monkey to coming from monkeys to going into humans. Monkey, right in that transition of monkey, you turn into a black person with big monkey features, nigger lips, and all of that. They'll love to mention that. And then, but we kept on going, and you got lighter and lighter as time went on. And then you came out, the nose shrunk down, the lips thinned out, and we came white, and that's the newest evolution of man. And survival of the fittest is the basis of how the evolution takes place. So this evolution in man had happened through survival of the fittest. And this is genetically superior pool of people due to this linear fashion that I am describing our thing. And even look at the black community, trying to talk about evolution, trying to talk about how they have maybe black people are talking about it from the perspective of de-evolution, which is interesting. It's literally backwards because they're claiming to be the original race of the world, and then everybody came from them, but it was degradations that had happened. It was their genetic code falling apart that had happened. When both sides of those spectrums are racist, what if it wasn't linear?
Exactly.
Think
like
the
the best concept I would give you with evolution, to connect evolution with the term planetary revolutions. So every time the planet revolted, we ended up gaining more evolution, more information. This is why they say your revolution is the same thing as revelations. Because I'm pretty sure you got a revelation after you had like a planet going through the entire cycle, like a Saturn return or something like that. So we get to think about evolution synonymous with planetary revolutions, which I think, in my opinion, if we tracked it through time, it would have made way more sense. With this transit, we're able to do this. With this transit, it would let us to do this, and so on and so forth.
100%, and it's cyclical, very cyclical in its nature. 100%, and it kind of always happens in a new space because we're always moving in space. So we're having these cyclical reoccurrences in new spaces, if you get what I mean. So what we're doing right now, something that we've always been doing. I'm telling you, 100,000 years ago, there was a dreaded out nigga in a turban cussing out some niggas talking some foo-foo about where humans come from. I'm telling you, 100,000 years ago, there was two niggas talking about the ideas and concepts that we're talking about now. And any idea and concept that you can talk about now is something that was there always. And that cyclical nature, what if there's even stories, indigenous stories of a population of men after some cataclysm, reportedly a polar shift, there was some degradation in some human populations, and they turned into more ape men, where they developed more hairy features and stuff like that. Maybe that's the origin of where the Sasquatch comes from, or these human hybrids and certain ideas. But no, it's an indigenous story, and they're all just kooks, just fucking, running around with their dicks out and shit like that. It's not like they're getting vitamin D on their skin and it builds up their immune system so they don't get sick. Nah. They're just primitive and they're stupid. But yeah, modern science can identify, but not fully understand reality's driving forces, which is basically what we were just talking about.
It's a denomination. Denomination, the soul further from the starting point will never get to the truth unless they explain to us like how they started and shit like that. There's no point of talking to someone if he's gonna tell you who's his father is, because I gotta backtrack where you come from first, and so I can understand the space.
Now I have to go to your father.
I gotta.
And then I got it from my father. Oh shit! Now I gotta go to his father.
But then this is almost like a son speaking out of his ass, and we don't know why he knows what he knows. He claimed that he just came into existence. He never had a previous father. He's the only that ever existed.
That's what they tell. I hate the word invented. Like 90% of the shit that was invented or discovered by some. Look at how they discovered America. Talking about we discovered America, and there was niggas on the continent. You didn't discover anything, if you get what I mean. But everything's always from their perspective, from us, their perspective. So yeah, it's just like Eric was saying. They always bring you back to their father, to their starting point, not the starting point, to their starting point. But when you look at the nature of reality and how we change and how we evolve, look at epigenetics. That stuff has already been, brought into modern science, let alone the thousands of years spiritual systems have been trying to tell niggas about it. But epigenetics shows that your environment, your mental environment that you facilitate, your cultural environment, your physical environment, everything turns on and off genes within your body. So and different expressions, and over time you can create a completely different genome and genetic structure based off of your individual experiences and these things passing down. So certain people living in certain geographical locations have certain epigenetic factors that go and cascade into what they are now, and whether it be cultural, environmental, everything, your particular life. So it's not genetic where it's just predisposition. Oh, my father was an alcoholic, so that's why I'm an alcoholic. That's stupid. If that's true, then every grandpa that you can think of, every great grandpa would have to be an alcoholic. And how does that even make sense? How are y'all niggas even here? Like that doesn't make any sense. If you get what I mean. But when you understand epigenetics,
you guys gotta realize epigenetics started a long time ago, and a lot of the ways that epigenetics started with, it was first with the Bible, the Torah, and then they understanding how language manipulate their physical body and reality. But first it starts with their mind, and they learn certain virtues and principles as a representation of letters, almost like certain buttons you press, which lead to certain genetic factors. So was the beginning for them to starting to build certain mindset to learn that led to certain physical aspects. And that's the like Bible religion, that's the first aspect of epigenetics. Islam, Christian, Jews, all these things were epigenetically engineered, all of them. You have to be
100%. That's society. Those are the first governments. People think religion and government separated. No, it was a nut. It was an egg. It was a child. It wasn't a separation. It was like, oh, bloop, Adam and Eve. Literally, they're like, let me take my rib and create another being to help support my thing. And then it's governments, whether boundaries and restrictions. They're ritualizing Saturn, they're taking Saturn into their own hands. And look how Saturn rules your crown chakra. So it's like they're trying to govern your mentality. So isn't that what a religion that is even in a good way? It's supposed to govern your mentality. It maybe in a good way, or that's your intention at least, but it's meant to govern your mentality, which is the government.
And that's why probably we don't realize why religion sold so much, or why people converted, or why people take it into liking, because they always seen these people acting out certain physical state. Oh, look at this person, he knows how to stay calm in these situations. This person does not go through this when his wife does this or that. So they always question, what kind of mind state you were on, what kind of scriptures, what type of symbols are you looking at for you to produce this genetic effect? Can you teach us?
Yep, 100%, and that happens in the good and bad ways. That's how you're drawn to a mentor. That's why that student-teacher relationship is so sacred.
The father, Jupiter, and the sun. Like, it's really astrological, and so you can't even argue against it.
100%. But yeah, that's the modern origin story. This is the indigenous cosmology when we're talking about where we come from and what the real understanding of the elements mean and what they represent, and how much correspondences you can make with these type of concepts.
So,
whether it be go in.
The point of all this is just to categorize things and create a self-organization system that is biosymmetrical with the universe to make a civilization to stand a long period of time. This is why a lot of civilization did all this incredible thing, because they anchored themselves within a system that self-organized itself. And like that's it. That's the perfect way to put it.
100%. 100%. And you come to this type of conclusions too and develop systems such as these when you resign as the observer and you just look and observe the world and observe your mental processes and your own psychology, observing the world and the natural processes that go around you. This is what you see.
This is a great example. In Dubai right now, they have one of these issues where it comes to getting rid of waste that the people accumulated in the building through. So you have this beautiful city, but you have these over 100,000 of trucks every day. They have to pull all this shit, this piss out of these buildings and drive in those long lines to throw them. Now, if you study back then in history, one of the main things that the Muslim Empire when it got into Spain, what did they do? Build bathtub, build detoxification, cleaning systems. Why? Because if we can't build the cleaning system of our society first, how can we ever get rid of the idea of how waste accumulate? The first thing we should do is first start with that.
Yeah.
How can we build a clean system? But you can see how in the future right now they did the other way around, so they have to kind of live backward basically.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you mean. While maybe in Europe niggas are saying Jesus Christ, but they ain't washed their ass. You know, so some niggas came in and showed them that you need to come and wash your ass. Because you know you get lost in the conceptual manifestations of water, your feelings and emotions, and you forgot the overlying, the how it can ripple and has multiple manifestations. You forgot the original form that it descends down into. And when we're talking about fire, earth, air, and water, man, we haven't even seen this shit really before in its true form. All of this shit is percentage level, down into density and physicality. We're not seeing their true shape and form. What I mean is it exists before, just like how your body is a manifestation of you and your physical vibration, and it's not the real you, and how expansive your real essence is and the potential that you are. You know, it doesn't encapsulate just this physical body, and it's the same way with the elements, where there's a perfect shape and form, there's a vibe, there's a frequency and vibration that is fire, and there's multiple manifestations that can come of that. So once you understand the vibe of that, you can see all of its different manifestations that they come out. And this goes with all elements.
Once you're able to categorize things based on this system, you have a clear perspective on how to look at everything and judge everybody in actually a fair way, and actually judging people based on nature, not based on your opinion. And once you judge it based on nature, they'll actually help you break through what's stopping you from getting with them, not to avoid them, just to understand how nature works. Once you understand nature, you could move through it, as opposed to allow nature to create lines for you that you can't cross, if you get what I'm saying.
100%. 100%. And why not be coherent? We forget the initial reception that we receive when we come into this world. We always talk about the world in such bad ways, and we treat the world in such a terrible way, or at least Earth in such a terrible way, forgetting that she received us, you know, in the beginning, and forgetting to be grateful for those aspects. And why not try and work in accordance with the one that received you, if you get what I mean? That's like everybody with their mama problems and shit like that. Like, nigga, if you don't love your motherfucking mama, or if you don't give your mama some goddamn love, or at least acknowledge that was your starting point, you know, then you probably ain't gonna have a nice life, or, you know, good relationships in your world. Because that's literally your moon quality. That's like literally the biggest essence. If you don't have that relationship somehow sorted out into a level of harmony, you know, you won't really be manifesting shit. But that aside, let's look at how all of these things manifest, and how air, we understand how it connects to communication. Literally, air is the medium sound travels through, and without the air, you wouldn't be able to hear me speak. There would be no communication.
Actually, air is very interesting, because a lot of us don't view air like water. Like right now, we live in the world, but we don't view how air affects us like water. A lot of us don't see how air affects us to the point it affects our biology. For example, your skin could pick up certain sensation when the weather changes that you're not aware of. Like the hair on your skin would stand up when when the weather changes before you would even react to it, and then they would send a response for your nervous system to realize, oh, I'm cold, but your body already like sensed it before you even did.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's facts.
And people be like, I don't trust my body. Like, what the fuck are you talking about it? If the only thing God gave you was your body and you don't trust it, you gonna trust science? people outside of you, what are you even talking about? Like the amount of lack of trust we're taught to put in our own self, it's so big. Like it makes me laugh. That's it.
It's so insane because all the scientists ever talk about is your bitch ass. That's all they ever talk about. They be all up in trying to discover every idea, every invention came up off of how your body works. How do you think they came up with the idea of a car, of a combustion engine? They notice that, oh shit, there's combustion, or they look at the heart was pumping shit, and how to make an engine based off of how your body moves. How do you think they came up with hydraulics? They're like, oh shit, we have blood flowing through our body, and it's pressurized, and that's what pushes things through the. These were the beginning places. Everything, everything. As a
They were
basis in
able
the
to come
body.
up with the internet through our brain and nervous system, but also through our hair, because our hair are almost like small antennas of our brain and nervous system. This is why you hear certain like allegories where you should grow your hair, you should not cut it, and certain like that, because it allows you to feel more into reality. Because it's an organ.
Yeah,
I don't know how people don't look at their hair as an organ, even though all of our body is just
as a
dead
part
blood
of it.
cells. Is like we should appreciate like every aspect and not look down on it, because it's the only thing that's closest to God. Because really, what's else close to God than your body? Not your, not people's opinion, no studies and shit like that.
100%. But you, the miracle that is you, the magic brick, the one brick that turned into two bricks, that turned into three bricks and started building a house. The magic brick. That's what you are. But not only does air represent the communication, all those things that we were just talking about, look at how it represents the element oxygen in that chemical relation. So we were aware of this atomic level of things when we're talking about air. We just had a different classification and words and titles to be calling stuff. And then look at how the color spectrum goes through all of these things too, even including the middle sections. But water obviously would be H2O in a molecular level, but also relates to environment, feelings, and emotions. Yeah, and even just it being environment, which is interesting, because stars are water, and we are in a body of water. Earth is 70% water, so why would you be
Hey,
looking at Earth? Look at how we even call Earth Earth, and we think Earth is the ground, but majority of Earth is water. Majority of you are water,
exactly.
and that's the environment that allows things to become for communication or connection to really happen. But I guess we can go deeper into that. But look at how Earth, when we're talking about Earth, the element of Earth, we're talking about carbon. Look at how Earth is strong, stable. Carbon, the element that is in all of these Earth things, that's in plant life, highly concentrated in the chlorophyll that gives it the pigmentation that it has, that does the photosynthesis, that feeds the motherfucking shit. Carbon is the major life sustaining, life building molecule, and it being represented by Earth
You know
is
what's
there.
crazy? In archaeology, they have this. I think they call it carbon backtracking or carbon
Dating.
dating, and it's crazy how they even use the term carbon in the stuff they're dating, and they never connect carbon with Earth and how Earth.
And it's in the field of
Yeah,
archaeology.
and how Earth elements represent the past and shit like that, and they studying about the past. So I was like, yo,
100%. 100%. And look at how fruits. It's interesting when you look at fruits. Fructose, they say it's one of the most dangerous sugars. And that's their perspective, which is based off of a whole bunch of other things, which is trying to kill you. But I think that's very interesting, because our bodies are designed like frugivores. Like we have ancestry of a whole bunch of thousands of tens of thousands, of hundreds of thousands of years eating fruit and simple diets and more fibrous type of foods that when we look at fruits and fructose, I think our body absorbs fructose so fast because that's the quintessential fuel for the body, if you get what I mean. And past fruits used to be more fiber, less, pulpy and stuff like that. We progressed it to that point. But I think, and obviously they're highly concentrated when you're putting in stuff like high fructose corn syrup and stuff like that. And they're taking it from corn and GMO shit and all of that other shit. That shit. But our body takes the fruit sugar in the most. That's what, and drawing that connection to Earth, I think that's very interesting on how we look at stability and how we look at things, and understanding that relationship. Maybe we can start managing our other relationships with eating and establishing stability. But that connection with fruits is very interesting. Look at sunlight being fire. Obviously, the big burning ball of fire. Why wouldn't that be a representation of fire? But immediately when you think of fire, you would think a campfire. But then you wouldn't see the link between the two. But when you understand the qualities of fire and say Libra, for example, a campfire is such a good symbol of Libra, because a campfire just kind of takes your attention of just a raging fire. You can't help but just stare at a fire, and it really encapsulates things. It grabs your attention. Same thing with the sun. The sun does the same thing, but these are two different things.
It's crazy. You would feel a similar energy in terms of heat, but you never put the two together, or you separate them completely.
Never.
That's like I'm trying to tell you earlier. We sacrifice our own subjective experience for science, which takes much of subjective experiences, create an objective reality, and then force that on us. But then when we have our own subjective idea, we be like, now let me put my own subjective experience on the side and let me uphold this objective reality that everybody agreed on. And I don't know if I should follow it or not, but it's everybody voted on it.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you talk with people, 99% of the time, the mentalities that they are purporting, the objective reality that they purport, you can point out in their own goddamn life how that doesn't prove to be true, at least all the time for certain things. And you can break that illusion, but then they run away from that type of shit. But you can easily break certain illusions. People talking about generalizing people, and it's like, yo, how much girls do you even know? All girls this. Yo, you dated 5 girls. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's a lot, for sure. And you do get a general feel of feminine, but you do not have no type of perspective of how all women in the damn world, are, But we often go with those type of assumptions. So, yeah, 100%. I feel what you're saying. Precision of modern day perception of reality in ancient cosmology. Interesting. Were we kind of talking about this type of stuff?
Yeah, they were basic. We're talking about it, but maybe to finish it, I would say that if you think about it, science is almost very democratic, if you will. It's very similar to polytheism, where you're worshiping multiple deities and you're not choosing who's your main hierarchy of God or hierarchy of studies, which they do. But since they have all these different studies, all these different deities, they end up like they can't worship one monotheistic idea, so they end up getting like lost. Yeah. If anything, science seems like very like Hinduism, but the logical aspect of Hinduism, where religion in a sense is completely the opposite. They focus on one ideal, and then everything follows after it, which is much more. What's the best word to describe it? Like it's almost like a constitution republic. While science is a democracy because it's voted on, while and it's
swaying, it's back and forth.
Basically, religious constitutional republic, they uphold these sets of law, and then they allow other certain acts, bills, which other books that comes after the main books. This is why you could connect the idea of America to some religion origin, because it makes that sense.
Yeah, 100%. Especially the long lastingness and longevity of it shows that it would have had to have some type of equilibrium to access that level of power and balance to thrive.
Exactly.
100%. for sure. Different ways of calculating
So
transits.
this is they practice astrology, but they put it through different interpretations. So when you look at this picture, you're seeing the same thing. It's the same
Kabbalah.
thing, literally, just different transition of different
Mm-hmm.
aspects of the energies. So when you see different land creatures, these represent creatures that could live in maybe the earth element, and water creatures they could live in the water element, which you could call maybe Neptune, or different aspects of transition, really. But you can see how this picture is almost like the same thing.
Yep, yep. Just repeat it all over again. 100%. 100%. Even with the 12 body systems, it's funny because you would look at the Bible and you would see, obviously the symbolism of the 12 being repeated over and over again, but you see that in the body too. There being 12 of something. Look at how there's 12 body systems. There's also, what is it, 12 like cranial nerves that surround and connect like the pineal gland or the pituitary gland, which is called representing Christ consciousness, if you get what I mean. So whether you're talking about, you know, the 12 disciples, and maybe they do relate to the nervous, and then the 12 tribes of Israel, and the body, like there's multiple 12s in the Bible, just like how there's multiple 12s in you, which is very funny or interesting.
So all you gotta know, they use different. They just use the same thing and they put it in different ways. So once you know that, you can't get
Hmm.
lost. It's just because you know the basis of the thing, which is astrology. And if you could use that to encapsulate all the
Hmm.
micro bastard children they're gonna produce, then you can't get lost because you know who's the father.
Exactly. Exactly. And then when we look at the sacred geometry, or the geometry of the smallest aspects of really life and molecules and how everything works is based off of shape and fit, and that goes into
Like, like
geometry. So when you look at geometry, it is the
and
source
you
of
could
life.
prove it just simply. Males, they have more squared angle features, rigid, right?
Rigid.
Like and shit like that. Female is more round, firm, and shit like that. So you can see geometry through human biology.
100%. 100%. And it's reflected in everything. And look at, even within the plutonic solids, the building blocks of things, there's representations or manifestations of fire and earth, and are the building blocks of our reality within even this geometric reference. But yeah, um, just even looking at water in its physical sense. Let's look at water. We could close it out just by looking at each of the elements and kind of break down the physical representations and the psychology of that goes on and the psychological aspects of them. But look at water and what we can learn from water on how it reacts. Look at how it holds memory, and that's the aspect of us that we have. Water is the most dissolvable material that exists, or is it it's soluble? But it's like it can dissolve anything. Anything can basically dissolve into water, and water can absorb into it and dissolve it, if you get what I mean. This is why it has purifying properties. This is why it holds memory, and detoxifies.
Understanding that water comes first and it's the basis of reality, what allows approach so many maybe third dimensional concepts in an easier way. For example, people would think to develop a big strong body you would eat a lot of maybe meat, a lot of thick masculine things, as opposed to focus on fluidity. But if you understand water creates a physical reality, so you might start from that starting point, which might get you to a physical body status that majority people do not get into, because you're building your body build based on fluidity, as opposed to starting the point from constriction, if you get what I'm saying. But you
I
obviously
get what you
need
mean.
both. So But this is why a lot of bodybuilders they
Yeah.
die of heart attacks, kidney. They all like a lot of people in sports. They take steroids, a bunch of stuff. They become this big puff of meat and earth element. This is dying. They explode.
Facts. Literally. But even the non-extreme versions of things, I've seen big dudes, bodybuilders, when you switch the position of where is being lifted, they lose a lot of that strength, or they would struggle with something that a dude that big you would automatically assume would be able to handle that type of weight. But when you do things based off of aesthetics and not based off of real potential, you know, the strongest dudes in the world who can live the most have a little belly. You know what I mean? It's interesting in terms of the things that you have to do, and then is that really what you want to do? Maybe somebody who's smaller has better endurance or something like that. If you get what I mean, they're stronger and durable in those type of ways. But yeah, you need a little bit of everything, for sure. But water would represent that flexibility. Look how shapeable water is and how it can permeate through everything, which is very interesting. And even in its relationship with Earth, how Earth really shapes it.
Water has such a spiritual aspect. Like sometimes I'll go ball up beside a river and just like how calm it makes you. It's very interesting versus smoking maybe in a hot box or outside in a garage or something.
Yeah.
Like it's totally different. I'm telling you, look at our water, how waves move in irregular pattern. There's something about it teach you about life.
I'm telling you, remember, we used to call it
I
Narnia,
remember.
but
I
remember that
remember.
place by Diego's house?
That was so sick.
Like, we subconsciously, like, we didn't even fucking know what we were doing, but just subconsciously, we were responding to that water flow that was being there. And it was so peaceful. You can get high there, and you had the
And the
trees.
green,
Like, look
yeah.
how we went out into nature. It was so green. You had the water, and we were just trying to get high. We weren't even thinking about that shit. But yet, we were still influenced by that, and look at how it represents environment. All liquids are kind of ruled by water too. You can look at physicality. You know how we have really four states of matter. Where you look at it, liquids would be water, and earth would be solids, obviously. Air would be gas, and then fire would be plasma. People often forget about that. You know, like this fire. What is that? You know, that's not. What is that? That's not a physical thing. My hand goes through it, but yet it affects me, and it's there, and you can see it. It's a different phenomenon. People forget about plasma, and that's the basis of like stuff like auras and stuff like that. That there's a light, that there's a physical substance. It's the basis of Wi-Fi, like the essence that you can't see that still affects surroundings. But yeah. Those are the physical aspects of water. But just even look at water. Like, look what we were just talking about. If you were to hang by water, just watch it. Just watch it. And there's so much that you will learn about life. And if you can make the correlation and you understood, like, we were doing things subconsciously. But imagine if we had the foundation and basis, we would have made more intentional decisions and maybe directed things in a more of a beneficial way because we understood where those energies had came from, if you get what I mean.
You can also understand the different.
We would have had
You
that
also
tradition.
understand like different practices in religion. Like Christian will baptize themselves in water like once. Muslim will wash themselves with water 5 times a day before their prayer and shit like that. Which is kind of funny. Or Jews too, they wash themselves. So it's interesting on how you could incorporate different concept of water in your daily life and how it makes you feel day to day. You cannot tell me a shower does not make you feel amazing. You cannot tell me a fresh fruit full of juicy does not make you feel good. It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Or a glass of water. You know, now you actually feel hydrated. You know, you know, now you don't feel itchy. You're not as irritable. You're not everything. Everything kind of calms down and clears its way through. Looking at water, there's so much to just learn. Look at how water flows. Look at how it could cause so much destruction. It can cause so much life. And how you can mitigate that, the properties. What happens when water is destructive? Normally, it's going with such a force. What happens when water is more nurturing? It is more, it's still flowing, or there's still motion, but it's more controlled motion, if you understand what I mean. So now you can, when you understand that it's your emotions, now you understand that it's your environment. This is how you can start going about these things. When you have these harsh emotions, or you don't want these harsh, heavy, hard-hitting emotions, you understand, remember to that rushing waterfall. How can you slow that waterfall, literally? And then how, or what are the manifestations that you can bring that within your life? Literally look at waves crashing. How do waves, this heavy wave, emotional wave is coming, how do you cancel out that wave of that emotion that you want? Another wave comes at the same wave, and they cancel out, and they just bloop. There's no wave anymore. So you can cancel out your negative feelings and emotions with the countering positive feeling and emotions. But look how so much of us just let the negative emotions just run us over, and that's what fills our subconscious mind. That's what fills our well inside of us.
Yo, can we do a part 2 for this video? Because I kind of gotta go.
100%. Yeah, we can dive deeper into this shit. Part 2. We can do that in sometime in the weekend too, or tomorrow, some shit like that.
Sorry, I gotta watch this movie.
Yeah. No worries, fam. But yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll continue this in the next one. But we'll catch you guys later.